All right, and welcome into the Fantasy Pros Fantasy Football Podcast. We are live on the YouTube channel reacting to Week 6 of the NFL season from a fantasy football perspective. I am your host, Seth Woolcock, and as always, I am joined by the internet's favorite orthopedic sports surgeon, Dr. Deepak Chona, who will be breaking down all of today's injuries. How are we feeling, Deepak? You've been increasingly busy so far this season, and we're officially 1/3 of the way through.
Yeah, feeling good, man. Texans out here just on a win streak and riding a high. So let's keep it rolling.
Absolutely. We are also joined by a Steelers fan living behind enemy lines down there in Dallas Cowboys country, Scott Big Time Bogman, who is likely having a fantastic weekend. Both his Texas Longhorns and Pittsburgh Steelers have taken care of business. How we doing, Boggs?
It's a good day, Seth. Can't complain today for sure. Got some fantasy dubs as well. Zigged and zagged, but like everybody else, I was hit by the injury bug as well. So let's get into it because there's a lot to go through here.
Absolutely. The outline for today's program, we will tackle the injuries first with Deepak here. Then we'll get into Scott's second half sprouts, and then we'll recap all 13 games from today. Thanks to everyone who's tuning in here on the YouTube channel or on the audio version as well. If you are here live with us on YouTube, make sure you give this video a thumbs up if you enjoy this type of content and hit that subscribe button. It's the easiest way to support us here and all the work we're doing at Fantasy Pros. And let's go ahead, gentlemen. Let's fire up the injuries because it was a busy one for Deepak and the doctors everywhere across the internet. Jacksonville Jaguars running back Travis Etienne leaves the London game with a hamstring injury. Really hurt fantasy managers as well as it left them with negative points. Deepak, we have Travis Etienne as well as some other hamstring injuries here, including Dallas Goedert and Jerome Ford, who left their games early as well. Are these all our typical, 2-week pulled hammy type of things, or do you think any of these could be more severe?
Yeah, there's no indication so far that any of them are more severe, but there's also very limited info out there on them right now. The average on these, as you said, is about 2 weeks, but the whole range of severity is kind of most directly told to us by the timeline to return to practice. So that's really what we'll be watching for, hopefully this week for some of them, but over the next couple of weeks, most likely.
Okay. Bogman, if there is some missed time here for Travis Etienne, is Tanks Bigsby an auto start for you? The Jaguars will be staying in London to face a team just as bad as them here next week, and the New England Patriots.
Yeah, I know a lot of people are panicking because Bigsby didn't do a lot here either with ETN going down, and we saw Dearness Johnson get a lot of touches, but they were getting beat so bad. Dearness Johnson is the pass guy, the pass protector guy as well. So that it's likely to be split between those guys. Passing downs go to Dearness, and first early downs, running downs go to Tank. So that's probably how it's going to be split. I wouldn't say that he's an auto start, but he would definitely be a start next week against the Patriots.
Okay, and Bogman, with that Dallas Goedert injury, we'll talk more about the Eagles in general and what it means for their offense later. But in the meantime, Dallas Goedert has been leading all tight ends in the NFL this season with averaging 75 receiving yards per game. Is there any tight end out there on waivers that could potentially help managers tread water in the meantime?
How about Mark Andrews? He's probably on a bunch of waivers now, but yeah, we're gonna have to suss through this one and see, because Calcaterra had a pretty good day for them. So if he's just taking that spot, he might be the guy to add. And very rare you get a tight end handcuff, but Calcaterra is a very good receiving tight end.
Noah Fant kind of had a big day for Seattle too. He was one of the guys I was thinking of. I have Dallas in a couple of places that I might have to go out and grab someone else off the waiver wire. So I thought maybe Noah Fant. Hunter Henry had a good game as well, with Drake May back under center as well. As far as this Cleveland Browns backfield here, Deepak, we know Nick Chubb is rumored to make his season debut next week against the Bengals. Do you think if Jerome Ford is out, Nick Chubb could be a play for fantasy managers, Deepak, or is it just too soon to really say, and we need to kind of see it on the field if he is out there?
Yeah, it does sound like he's trending towards playing week 7. Now, the key with this is that when players come back from these huge ligament surgeries, usually they average about a 4-game period to ramp up their touches. And you would expect that to be slow given the sort of severity of Nick Chubb's injury. So if he were to have a third injury to this same knee, that could very well be a career ender. Mm-hmm. So I would think they would probably ramp him up. At best, I would feel comfortable putting him maybe as a flex.
Okay. Bogman, are you interested in either Pierre Strong, Donta Foreman this upcoming week if Nick Chubb is active as maybe a sneaky RB2 start, or are you just kind of staying away from this Cleveland backfield right now?
I think I'm probably going to stay away. I mean, Pierre Strong, they keep going back and forth. Pierre Strong did get more run in this game, so I think it would go to him. Okay. I am, of course, a Foreman fan because he's a Texas boy, but Pierre Strong is what they go to, and it's going to be in a big ugly mix if Chubb is in there as well anyway.
Okay. A couple more injuries of note here. Arizona Cardinals wide receiver Marvin Harrison Jr., he suffered a concussion against the Packers. We also had New Orleans Saints wide receiver Chris Olave, who was knocked out early with concussion against the Buccaneers as well. Deepak, what's the status, you think, of these players moving forward? We know we will be seeing the Saints play on Thursday night against the Broncos, so maybe safe to say Olave won't be out there. Marvin Harrison Jr., though, Monday night game for him, so could he maybe be back?
Yeah, so the odds definitely favor Olave missing, given that it's a Thursday night game upcoming. Most players take about 8 days or so to get through the protocol, so Harrison's kind of right on that edge. The data still slightly favors him sitting for that game, but it's definitely possible. So we'll just have to kind of watch the practice reports for him.
Okay. Bogman, on a scale from 1 to 10, how much would you trust Rashid Shaheed on Thursday Night Football? 7 targets today with Spencer Rattler under center, but just 1 reception, 11 yards. Did have that big punt return for the touchdown, kind of saved his day. We also know Patrick Surtain for the Broncos, their lockdown cornerback. He is probably going to be out of that one as well. He was concussed today.
Yeah, he's banged up for sure. So, yeah, I think I would be okay starting Shaheed on Thursday night. He is going to be the number one. Like you said, 7 targets. It was Rattler's first start, so maybe they get a little more comfortable going through the quick practice week here. So I'd be okay starting him in most spots.
It's like a 5 or a 6 probably on that scale? Okay.
Probably right around there.
Okay.
5 or 6, yeah.
What about for the Cardinals here? Would Michael Wilson be someone you could possibly get into your lineups here on next Monday night, Bogman? He had a touchdown here again, but still felt like no one truly outside of Trey McBride there stepped up for the Cardinals passing game.
Yeah, not a lot there. So Wilson in a desperate spot, but I'd probably be looking to the wire for somebody else.
Okay. All right. Not on our injury graphic here, but I think important to note is Dontavian Wicks for the Packers. He suffered a shoulder injury against the Cardinals here. Do you have a projected timeline for him, Deepak, and when we might be able to see this talented second-year wide receiver back out on the field?
Yeah, he's calling it a shoulder sprain, and that suggests to me probably an AC joint is the most likely. Those can be played through for wide receivers, though. They cause pain when you're kind of going up and overhead. So when you're trying to go up to catch the ball, basically, so you do see a performance dip if players are active early. So it's kind of one of those things that with them having a deep wide receiver core that's now relatively healthy, you may see him kind of on limited snaps just because he might not be as effective as normal if he's playing.
Is Christian Watson, you think, back to 100% as well? He looked great today after a pretty gnarly injury just a week or so ago.
Yeah, he still only had a few targets, and if you look at the box score compared to average, I think that's kind of classic of him bouncing back. So I wouldn't call him 100% yet, but he's pretty close. I would say within the next 2 weeks, you probably see a full strength.
Okay, yeah, we saw his dad on the internet chirping at some people who were throwing away around some diagnosis on that. Bogman, can you start any of these wide receivers for the Packers against the Texans next week? There were 4 touchdowns between Jaden Reed, Christian Watson, and Romeo Doubs as well. But we did see Jaden Reed kind of enter this game a few times.
Yeah, I mean, let's ask Deepak because I have another Texans buddy who said, yes, well, the Texans look good, but they were leaving guys wide open in the backfield. It's just May couldn't hit him because it's his first start. So I think if these guys are healthy for Green Bay, you can start them. I'm okay moving ahead with them starting even against a tough Texans defense.
Do you think Reed will be out there, Deepak?
Yeah, I do think he will play. He did leave. He started the game really hot, then he left, and then he had maybe one catch towards the end. So with that in mind, with these ankles, it tells me it's not a terrible severity, but it may impact him because it's going to swell over the next few days, and that's going to be the thing he's kind of battling. So probably a little less than 100%, but still like 80 plus.
Okay. Bogman, do you have anything else here for Deepak before we let him go? I'm sure he's got to get some rest here, and he's going to be in surgery quite a few times this week.
I just want to know, Deepak, about Mason with the Niners with that shoulder, and then Hutch for my IDP guys out there because that looked brutal.
Yeah, Hutch did look brutal. Starting with Mason, though, AC sprain, so that's from falling directly onto the tip of the shoulder, typically causes about a 2-week effect. And with that, most running backs miss 1 to 2 weeks. So the thing is, if he comes back early, as we saw in game, excuse me, that he likely will have an impact of this. And specifically, you would see that in any ability to like break tackles, catch balls. That's where I would expect to see the limitations. Then regarding Hutchinson, the video is pretty brutal. It looked like he broke his tibia in his leg. That is the good news is that most players, when they do return, they do bounce back to their pre-injury level. The downside, though, is that it's, of course, a season ender and extremely painful. So long road of recovery for him. And hopefully we're wrong here, but the video is pretty convincing. So best wishes for him.
Ooh,
even if the Lions make a deep playoff run, you think, Deepak, there's no way, if it is a fractured bone there, that he makes it back?
I would say it's very, very hard to do so before like at least 3 months, but even normally would be like 6. So you could do it in the NFL. These guys are doing all sorts of wild things, but I doubt it.
Okay, man, Bogman, that's tough for all those people holding that Detroit Lions Super Bowl ticket out there.
Yeah, that and they still beat down Dallas pretty good today.
Yeah,
and they still have a good squad, but that is an enormous loss for the Lions. And he was putting up huge IDP numbers for everyone that plays IDP. So tough loss there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Deepak, we can't thank you enough for not only joining us here this week, recapping week 6 injuries, but every single week on the Fantasy Pros Fantasy Football Podcast. Make sure you guys are plugged in with Deepak at SportsND Analysis on Twitter. Anywhere else we can find you, anywhere else we can support you, my man?
Also on Instagram, if that's more your speed, at SportsMedAnalytics. But otherwise, you can keep catching me here every week and look forward to it.
Awesome. Well, good luck to you this week, man. Get some rest, and we'll catch him here back next Sunday night here on the Fantasy Pros Fantasy Football Podcast. And guys, stick around with us here. We're going to recap the games right after this.
Have you ever felt like you're just guessing when you're placing a bet? Look, we've all been there, hoping for that big win, but lacking the confidence to back our picks. Well, what if I told you that you could turn those hunches into winning strategies? Betting Pros will transform you from the casual bettor into a betting pro. First up, meet the Prop Bet Cheat Sheet and Prop Bet Analyzer. Sync your fantasy league with Betting Pros by signing into your Fantasy Pros account and review your players' weekly props with all the historical data right at your fingertips, and you'll be able to make confident over-under decisions. You'll be ready to dominate all those prize picks and underdog pick'em leagues with our exclusive prop projections and correlated picks that will empower you to build data-driven pick'em parlays. Say goodbye to the guesswork and hello to strategic betting. And if you have a gut feeling about a player or a team's performance, with our betting systems and our system builder, you can turn that intuition into a profitable system. Create your own betting system for free and receive ongoing bets that match your criteria all season long. This all sounds great, right? The best part, though, is that you can get a free trial of Betting Pros Premium right now. If you've never had Betting Pros Premium, just head over to bettingpros.com/apps and download the Betting Pros sports betting app and activate your free trial on the upgrade screen. Start your journey to becoming a true betting pro today.
All right, folks, it's time for our Scott second half sprout segment, where we'll highlight one young player who we'll call a seed who is ready to sprout and break out to help your fantasy team dominate down the stretch. Who do you got for us here this week, Scott Bogman?
I'm going to go with Xavier Legette, the wide receiver for the Carolina Panthers. This is a very solid player, scored a touchdown today. There's a couple to pick from today, too. I could have gone with Vidal. I could have gone with Sean Tucker, who bailed me out of a 16-man league spot
no
today.
way. No way.
Rachaad White might be back pretty quick here. So we'll see about that. But Legette, I think it's going to become more of a 1B to Deontay Johnson the further we move into this season. Very good player. Fun to watch, fun to listen to in an interview as well. The man from South Carolina. And listen, this Panthers team, is going to be passing a lot. That defense is bad. They've had a lot of injuries. So Andy Dalton back there, I think he's slung it 38, 40 times today, somewhere in that neighborhood. I think we're going to see a lot more of that in the future as well, because they are going to let teams score and have to play catch up a lot, which is going to lead to more targets and more comfortability between Dalton and Legette.
Oh, that's a fun one, man. I really hope we can see Legette really come into focus here. It's kind of been, I don't want to say it's been a slow start for some of these like ancillary rookie wide receivers, but we've had Marv who has broken out. We've had Neighbors, of course, and Brian Thomas Jr. We've seen flashes from Worthy, but these like second round guys from your rookie draft, we really haven't seen it yet. Pearsall's kind of been banged up. We haven't seen him since he got shot, but it feels like Legette's kind of that next guy who could step up here, Bogman. I like that call.
Hopefully Roman Wilson at some point for our Steelers as well, but can't see the field. So
yeah, absolutely. And just like your fantasy team, your lawn needs the right care to thrive, especially during fall here. I bet you didn't know that the fall is actually the perfect time to feed your lawn. You can give your lawn a boost with Scott's Turf Builder Winter Guard. Recover from summer, prep for the winter, and lay the foundation for a strong, healthy lawn. Come spring, Scott's Winter Guard strengthens your grassroots, repairs summer damage, and prepares your lawn for winter so you can enjoy fall without worrying about your lawn. So don't wait. Pick up a bag of Scott's Turf Builder Winter Guard today. Feed your lawn. Feed it. I feel like I'm old, Boggs, because like I actually really care what my lawn looks like nowadays. I went through like this stretch in the summer. We got no rain for like a month and it was brown as heck. And I'm like, man, I just want a good lawn. And Scott's is something I use as well. So hopefully the good folks out there are listening to the podcast get invested with Scott's as well.
Yeah, I've been using Scott's forever. I had a big property in Arizona when I was growing up, and I was the guy in charge of the lawn. So nice. I've used Scott's all my life. It's a great product.
Yeah, there's a reason that they're always around, man. They're timeless here. And let's go ahead and kick things off in London, where the Bears moved to 4-2 after beating the Jaguars 35-16. It was the Caleb Williams breakout we've been waiting for all season long. 4 touchdowns, 28.7 fantasy points. He has scored now over 50 fantasy points in the past 2 weeks combined. Keenan Allen, welcome back. He found the end zone. That benefited me in a couple of leagues. I had to spot start him with some of the injuries I was dealing with. So thank you, Keenan Allen. Also, Cole Kmet, not only did he score 2 touchdowns, was doing a little long snapping in there as well. Didn't get points for that. But DeAndre Swift also found pay dirt here with over 100 combined yards yet again. What are your biggest takeaways here for the Chicago Bears, Scott?
I mean, I just can't believe DeAndre Swift has been so good like 3 weeks in a row as well. I'm not a Swift guy here,
Same.
but he has been very, very solid and, pushing Roschon out of that role. But I mean, the big story here is Caleb looking good with the 4 touchdowns and, Keenan Allen coming back and looking good. Kmet scoring 2 touchdowns and looking good. Of course, it was at the cost of DJ Moore, only 4 catches for 20 yards.
Did have a touchdown called back, so could have been a better day for DJ.
Yeah, it could have been for sure. Odunze as well, looking like the third here. But yeah, nice day for Caleb, and hopefully we see more. But get to play Jacksonville every week.
Is Keenan Allen still like kind of just like a risky flex to you despite the big game?
He is. But I do think he'll get more comfortable and hopefully healthier. The healthier he looks, the better he is. So I believe, Chicago's on a bye this week, and we're gonna have Jacksonville stay in London. If they get smoked by the Patriots, Peterson might be staying in London as well.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Yeah. Shout out to Andrew Erickson, who on the prop betting show for Betting Pros last week, he shouted out Keenan Allen to get it done and get in the end zone. He is a good red zone target. So maybe we continue to see that working. For the Jaguars, meanwhile, Bogman, the only notable player really was Evan Ingram, who went for 10 receptions, 102 yards in this one. Other than that, we might not have ETN next week. But do you have any other major takeaways for Jacksonville as they remain in England this week?
No, I think they'll be better. This was a bad game. It got away from them really fast here as well. So I know people are frustrated with ETN. I completely understand it. And Bigsby, not the big day here either, but I do think they'll be in the game more against New England. I think Bigsby will get the touches. I don't think they'll get behind like this and need to have Dearness Johnson back there as much. So I think it'll be an okay week for Bigsby if ETN is out.
What do you do with Christian Kirk, dude? He's just like rotting away on people's benches right now. Just three for 39 for him this week. So do you just kind of keep him around? Like you can't really trade him for much at this point.
Yeah, bench him. If you have another option, you have a fringy guy and this guy is frustrating, you absolutely bench him. He has not been that good. Brian Thomas is the guy here. Gabe Davis was leading in snaps for a while. I believe he got a little banged up this week, but it's the Brian Thomas show, the running back show, and Ingram is the main guy. He came back and got 10 catches immediately. So Ingram is the guy.
Where do you rank like Trevor Lawrence, do you think, is like an actual quarterback, fantasy aside, in the league right now? Because I had some group messages today that were really down on T-Law this morning saying like, I don't even think this guy's a top 20 signal caller in the NFL anymore. Do you think that's just recency bias? People a little mad that he didn't perform for fantasy once again?
I don't think it's recency bias because we haven't seen him play very well, in the NFL. He had the Urban Meyer mess. I think Doug Peterson got hired off a nice run with the Eagles. He had a little bit of that Dave Canales of being a quarterback whisperer. It is not working. So I think after this season, we're going to see a new head coach in Jacksonville. And I think hopefully we'll put together a better game plan for Lawrence, but the time is ticking, but he did just get paid. So he's going to be the guy there for a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely agreed with you there. And I honestly think Brian Thomas, as you kind of mentioned, is actually a pretty strong buy low candidate for me. He did have just 3 for 27, but involved early in this one as well. And then they kind of just went away from him. It was a pretty tough Bears defense as well. And you can actually use our trade analyzer over at fantasypros.com/myplaybook or on the Fantasy Football My Playbook app to instantly evaluate how any trade will affect your team this year for the rest of the season, for an upcoming week, or even in Dynasty as well. So Bogman, I'm definitely gonna be firing that tool up here this week and seeing what I can get for Brian Thomas Jr. and try to swindle some of my league mates here this week.
Definitely buying time. He's a good one coming off a bad week.
Absolutely. In New Orleans, we saw the NFL debut of Spencer Rattler in a 27-51 loss to Tampa Bay. He was mediocre at best, I would say. 22 of 40 for 241 yards, a touchdown, and 2 interceptions as well. No Olave for the most of the day, however. So we did rely on both the tight ends and Alvin Kamara, who had another 8 targets in this one. Baker Mayfield was kind of up and down in this game as well. Bogman, 235 yards, 4 touchdowns, but did have 3 interceptions. Chris Godwin, though, I mean, that's the storyline for me in this game. Wide receiver 1 on the week after 11 receptions, 125 yards, 2 scores. It's been a renaissance season for the former Nittany Lion. We did a redraft last week on the IBT podcast, and Godwin went at the end of the second round. Does that feel like if we were to redraft today, does that feel about where you would take Godwin as well?
I think that feels pretty good for sure, especially Mike Evans kind of looking his age finally and being a little bit nicked up here. But we saw Juju Smith-Schuster take the time stone last week against the Saints and figure it out again, right? But this was I had Chris Godwin in my top. I believe I had him 6 this week in my rankings because they cannot cover the slot in New Orleans, and he smoked them this week. So I looked there on it's Denver next week for New Orleans. So I don't know. Are we gonna go Bo Nix there? I don't know about that.
Probably not. Yeah.
But this was a great game for Godwin for sure. And yeah, you're right, because Baker 4 touchdowns, but 3 picks as well. This was going back and forth. Loved the Sean Tucker. Like I said, I picked him up and started him in a 16-man league. So that worked out really well. I was between him and Shamklin too. And then when Warren came back and was going to play, I'm like, I'll put in Tucker. I picked him up this morning, by the way, and he went that crazy. So that was nice for me. I don't expect that to happen if Rachaad White is back. Obviously, it's going to be White and it's going to be Bucky, but we saw both these running backs look really good this week.
217 combined yards for him. They looked awesome.
I'm wondering if Rachaad White looks not so good. Do we see a third guy, Tucker, who, after looking good, get in the mix here a little bit more? So it would be gross if we're rostering Irving or White if that happens. So hopefully we see Rachaad White come back and look good. But short rest might not even play this week. So
I love Sean Tucker. He's been a guy.
Syracuse, man.
Yeah, and that was when Syracuse was really, I feel like consistent. They were fun to bet on back in the day as well. So 34.2 fantasy points for him. Congratulations if you started Sean Tucker. Probably should go buy a lottery ticket tonight as well, because you're only going to get that lucky so many times in your life. Here's a stat that I found on Twitter from at Dynasty Zoltan FF. Rachaad White carries the season 51. Sean Tucker 16. 10-yard runs this season. Rachaad White 4, Sean Tucker 6.
Well, he was playing against a gas defense in the fourth quarter a lot too. So
true.
That is a little misleading, but I mean, hey, Rachaad White way more chances and has not hammered it. So yeah, it is ugly. As far as Spencer Rattler goes, tough game to start. Chris Olave goes down immediately. You don't have Taysom Hill in this game either. I did not think he was going to throw 2 picks, because even at South Carolina, pretty cowardly with the ball, doesn't want to put it in harm's way, because that's what got him benched at Oklahoma. He's kind of been conservative with the ball, but being down this many points, he had to put it up. I believe both of those were, one was late in the third. I believe the other one was in the fourth. So they were down big. I think Spencer Rattler will be okay in this spot for Derek Carr moving forward. Just a tough start. And if Olave is not playing, which he probably won't, not a good start either. And Denver's been a tough D.
Yeah, it's gonna be a tough one, and it was a tough one on Sunday too. Like, we had that early fumble that was returned for a touchdown, and they kind of just were never able to get going after that. But I mean, they did make it a game for somewhat of it, so that was good to see. Any other fantasy football takeaways for you from this one? Mike Evans, I think you just got to keep sending him back out there. He's had 3 games with 23 plus points, and then 3 games with single digits. Like, that's just got to be the most Mike Evans thing in the world.
Yeah, I mean, when you have him in your lineup, he wins you weeks. So you got to keep hammering with Mike Evans in your lineup.
Agreed. At Lambeau Field, the Packers whacked the Cardinals 34-13. Green Bay outgained Arizona by 134 yards, controlled time possession by over 36 minutes in this one. And as we noted, it was a really nice day for all the Packers wide receivers not named Wicks. Josh Jacobs had his 5th game in 6 weeks in double-digit fantasy points as well. For the Cardinals, meanwhile, every single day it feels like someone out there is looking for a tight end in a fantasy league, and Trey McBride is one of the best, I think. And you could have bought him low probably a couple weeks ago when he was banged up, and comes out here, has 8 receptions for 96 yards. How do we feel about the likes of James Conner, though? 6.6 fantasy points, kind of a down game for him. Kyler Murray, 12 fantasy points. We saw a lot of DeMarcado in this one because they were trailing. We also saw a lot of Trey Benson as well actually have more carries than Conner.
Yeah, this was a weird game. I mean, DeMarcado actually led in snaps with 31, Connor 18, Benson 11. They were having problems protecting Kyler. And so you saw a decent amount of DeMarcado back there to protect. He also ran a decent amount as routes. He actually ran more routes than Connor had snaps. So
Wow.
not a good feel for Connor this week. I don't expect this to be the way the Cardinals go moving forward. It was just they couldn't do anything up front in this game. And that's, Murray kind of gutted out an okay performance based on what we saw and Marvin Harrison going down. But like you said, Seth, with McBride, with Harrison going down, McBride is the guy. It's going to be just like Brock Bowers we saw with Vegas. We'll get into that in a little bit. But yeah, he is the number one target on this team by a wide margin because it's Michael Wilson, it's Greg Dortch. It's kind of, Xavier Wheeler for whatever reason, 41 snaps, more than Dortch, more, and almost as many as Wilson. So that was kind of out of nowhere as well. So it really felt like the Cardinals were trying to shake things up this week. So I don't know if we're going to look into this moving forward, but we probably need to pay attention to press conferences and what they say, because there were some weird moves in this game.
Yeah. Do you think Trey Benson is worth like a speculative stash? He's probably out there on waiver wires right now.
Yeah, I mean, he still only had 11 snaps. So 11 snaps, the 4 routes. So, I think it's a deeper league play, maybe a handcuff to Connor play if they decide to go away from him, but not much outside of that right now.
Tough schedule coming up for the Cardinals. They have the Chargers, Miami, Chicago, the Jets, and a bye. Are you panicking on Murray or Connor? It sounds like you're not. Sounds like you're kind of just like, hey, it's a one-off bad game for them. They'll get back together here and regroup.
I mean, I don't, if I can avoid starting Cardinals, if Marvin Harrison Jr. is down against the Chargers this week, then I probably will, because that Chargers defense looks tough. But other than that, the rest of the schedule doesn't scare me.
Okay. And before we continue, I wanted to remind you, if you want a chance to win a free signed Justin Jefferson helmet, courtesy of our friends over at pristineaction.com, all you need to do is head over to fantasypros.com/contest, complete the form, and either A, download the Fantasy Pros Draft Wizard app, B, leave a review for the podcast, or follow us on X or Instagram or TikTok at Fantasy Pros. The more actions you complete, the more entries you'll receive. We'll be announcing a winner right here on the podcast. So make sure if you're watching on YouTube, you hit subscribe, turn on those notifications so you can be alerted when new episodes are in and to claim your prize. All right, moving forward here to the Music City, Titans fans probably looking forward to the 2025 NFL draft, honestly, as they sit at 1-4 after losing the Colts 20-17. Will Levis completed 16 of 27 passes, 495 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. Christmas might be coming early, I think, Bogman, in Nashville, if you know what I'm saying. Yeah. A little Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. What do you think? Until then, can we trust any Titans pass catchers?
I mean, Hopkins finally got like a full array of snaps and had 4 for 54. He's still a boomer bust play at this point in his career, but he's fine as like a wide receiver 3 or a flex option. But Pollard is it. I mean, Spears got hurt. He left with a hamstring injury, didn't play in the second half. So it was all Pollard. But I mean, 16 completions for, what do you say, 99 yards, 97 yards?
95, yeah.
Just a terrible performance, and he has not looked good at all. So I think you're right. I think a quarterback change is going to look to happen pretty quick. I think Will Levis gets this game against Buffalo, but I don't know after that. So we'll see, because it's been so bad there. They have to make a change, because, I mean, look, they held the Colts to 20 points. Sure, you're on your backup quarterback, but we've seen Joe Flacco look good. Michael Pittman was going to the infirmary on Tuesday and now catching touchdowns on Sunday. So they must have did something right. I don't know what it was there, but that was nice for them. But yeah, I think on this Titan side, Pollard is really the only true trustable guy on a week-to-week basis, and then Hopkins is probably going to be matchup based, because Calvin Ridley has been miserable. He has 2 catches in his last 3 weeks and 9 catches over 5 games this season. So they gave him a rush in this game to get the ball in his hands. Him and Levis are not making it happen. And I think for that reason, I would go with Mason Rudolph this week, but I don't think they make the change that quick. We'll see.
On that note, Calvin Ridley in week number 2, he had 24.7 PPR points in the 3 games since, 5.3 fantasy points total. That is total. Yeah, dude. It is.
0.9 today on his 9-yard rush.
Remember in the offseason when Callahan was saying he was going to use him like Jamar Chase and everyone got excited?
Yeah, not me. I'm not a Calvin Ridley guy. So
for the Colts, meanwhile, Joe Flacco keeps it rolling with Anthony Richardson, somewhat of a surprising inactive. We heard he was probably going to go, and then he doesn't go here. But Josh Downs is proving to be one of the best waiver wire pickups so far this season. 7 for 66 and a score on 9 targets. Rest of season, who you taking? Josh Downs, who's averaging 19.2 fantasy points over the past 3 weeks, or Michael Pittman Jr., 14.8 fantasy points in that span. Welsh said to me last week that it was closing. The gap was closing between these two. Has Downs now passed Michael Pittman, you think?
I mean, if Michael Pittman was going on the IR, then yes, for sure. This is a weird injury. I know Deepak on a couple tweets said that the risk for re-injury was very high this week.
Yes.
So we'll have to pay attention to the reports and see how Pittman came away. I think it's fair to question this for sure. I am a Michael Pittman stan, so I have many shares. I'm not selling them right now. So I think at some point we'll get into a rhythm with all of these guys. Right now, Downs is in a rhythm with Flacco, and there was big news out of camp that him and Richardson were connecting very well. So I like that they're going to Pittman in the end zone finally with this Colts team because they haven't the last couple of years. I know our boy Fitz kind of complained about that when we'd argue about Pittman in the Dynasty show in the offseason. And I said, well, he can catch contested balls.
Right.
And just not he's enormous. They're just not throwing him to him. They got it to him today and he made it. So, I think it's pretty close. I think right now you have to go with the healthy guy. The healthy guy is Downs. But if they give Pittman the all clear, I'm a Pittman guy. I'm going to stick with him.
Would you sell high after both of these games? I mean, Pittman kind of salvaged his day with the score. I sold Pittman high the last couple of weeks in all the leagues I had him. I wanted to kind of get out of this Colts passing game, specifically if it is Anthony Richardson piloting it. But are you just kind of staying pack, it sounds like?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think that the touchdown is going to bail him out of the injury scare. So I don't think you can sell him like you did a couple weeks ago. So
sure.
I would wait for another big performance before I sell.
Okay. In the city of brotherly love, the Eagles get back above 500 with a 20-16 win over the Cleveland Browns. It was the first dud that we've seen from Saquon all season, just 7.4 fantasy points, but solid games from both A.J. Brown, 23.6 fantasy points, and Devonta Smith, 15.4 fantasy points as well. Historically, Bogman, the main beneficiary of Goddard missing time, has been Devonta Smith. Do you see it going any differently this go around?
Nah, it's Slim Reaper time. I love Devonta Smith. Great player, deserves more targets. And AJ Brown came back and looked like AJ Brown. So this is a tough Browns defense as well. I know the offense has been woeful, but their defense is still really good. You saw Myles Garrett block a punt or a field goal today.
Jumped it. Yeah.
I mean, awesome. They did the Giants thing, right? Where they pushed down the center and he got over, he cleared it, which is legal. If you touch the guy, it's illegal. So you have to clear, and just an enormous man making that jump is just crazy. Myles Garrett, such a good player. But yeah, I think in terms of the Eagles, it's a tough day for Saquon. Whatever. He's been fine the whole year. I'm not worried about that. It's a tough day. Hopefully it didn't cause you to lose, but love what we saw from Brown and Devontae coming back. And it sucks that Goddard went down, but we know there's guys to step up here. We already talked about Calcaterra a little bit earlier, and we know that A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith have no problem picking up the pace.
I want to ask you a couple questions on Smith. Would you rather have Devonta Smith or Tyreek Hill rest of the season? Assuming Tua comes back.
Still Tyreek.
Okay. What about Jalen Waddle?
I'd rather have Devontae.
Okay. What about, I'm trying to think who else would be a good one here. What about Mike Evans?
Still Mike Evans.
Okay. All right.
Maybe I'm holding on too long on that one. That there's a possibility, but I can't until Mike Evans has a bad season. I don't think I'm giving up on him. So.
Stephon Diggs. That's close. That's a tight one.
Close one. Give me Diggs right now.
Okay.
But it's very, very close.
Okay. And meanwhile, for the Browns, we've already talked about this backfield. Nick Chubb could be returning here this upcoming week. Jerome Ford banged up. But I want to talk about this wide receiver core right now. Amari Cooper had his 4th game of falling below double-digit fantasy points after catching just 4 for 42 here. He still looks like a really good wide receiver. He's running good, clean routes, but he's just not making the most of these high value targets. It's kind of hard to tell, though, if it's his end or really
It's
Deshaun
not his
Watson.
end. Yeah.
Yes. So do you think he's pretty much just like a boom bust wide receiver 3 until either A, he's traded to a different team, or B, we see a quarterback change in Cleveland? Stefanski did commit to Watson moving forward.
I don't understand why. I don't get
The
it.
line's really bad too, though. It doesn't help.
It is. It's bad, and it probably wouldn't be any too much better with Jameis Winston. But I mean, you got to try something because it ain't working. You keep losing games. So I don't know. Yeah, Cooper is definitely a boomer bust guy. If you want to bench him right now, try to move him cheap. I don't know what you could possibly get for Cooper at this point. His value
maybe a
is
30
bad.
pack of Busch Light and a pack of cigs or something.
Yeah, something. Yeah, throw in a lighter and we got a deal. So, Cooper is super frustrating because this offensive line and Deshaun Watson together have been super frustrating. So, there's not a lot to do with him. If you're in a shorter league, and there's someone really good on the wire, okay, but I don't see that scenario. Especially with bye weeks, we're in the middle of it now. So I'm holding on to Cooper, but I'm not doing it with a big smile on my face.
Are you dropping Jerry Jeudy? It seems like his volume's kind of gone down with Dave Njoku back in the fold.
Yeah, if you can get like Wandale or somebody, whatever it is, I would rather go with most other guys than Jerry Jeudy. I mean, Jerry Jeudy, it would be different if we were talking about a different offense, but I mean, we're not. So
yep.
he can go.
Okay. Up in New England, we saw Bob Kraft looking onward as the 3rd overall pick. Drake May made his starting debut in a 21-34 loss to the Texans. Showed some promise in this one. 20 of 33 for 243 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions for him. Also rushed for 38 yards on 5 carries as well. 19.5 fantasy points for the rookie. Is Drake May going to be a start-worthy play at quarterback moving forward, Bogman?
I think in Superflex he will. I don't think on a week-to-week basis he will be. But, our boy Pat Fitzmaurice talked about this all offseason. He's got that rushing upside. I believe his prop was 25.5 this week, and he crushed it with 38. So it might have been 20. It might have been even lower than that. But, yeah, May will make some throws. He'll make some boneheaded decisions as a rookie as well. He had a couple picks here. So, that will happen, but he'll add some, and he'll at least breathe life back into Pop Douglas and Kayshon Boutte. We saw score a touchdown today. Hunter Henry, we saw score a touchdown today. So at least he breathes a little life back into this offense. And really what it'll help for is when Ramondre comes back. When Ramondre comes back, get a little more running room for him. So that's what we want.
Yeah. Antonio Gibson, he got the backfield to himself without Ramondre. Did not capitalize on it. 19 yards, 13 carries. I actually sold Gibson and Fields this past week for Jalen Waddle. So I'm feeling kind of good about that now. I kind of wish I had Fields still in my back pocket after seeing the 2 rushing touchdowns. However, Pop Douglas, you mentioned him. He's kind of emerged as this Pats catcher that we won in the Pats offense. He had 6 for 92 and 1 in this one. He's had 9 targets in 3 out of the last 4 games, averaging 16 points per game in those games when he is heavily targeted. Any interest in him or going back to the toxic Eck of Hunter Henry at all?
No. Let's go to Pop and let's dump Jerry Jeudy to pick up Pop Douglas. If you're rostering Jerry Jeudy, that's like a perfect move right there. I would like to see Jalen Polk get a little more involved, the rookie. But
I bet the receptions line today because I figured that they would have great chemistry, and it didn't go.
I did it a couple weeks ago against the Jets because he was getting so many snaps and it didn't happen. So we've both learned our lesson on that. But he's at least the guy to put on the watch list to see, if he does have a good connection with Drake May, maybe he gets a little more this week. So we'll see what happens there. But just a name to kind of keep your eye on. But I like adding Pop Douglas.
Yeah, I did want to correct myself as well. The Texans won this one 41-21. I said 34 earlier. And that led to an awesome day for all their skill players. Joe Mixon, 27.2 fantasy points. Stephon Diggs just keeps it rolling, man. He's been one of the best values in drafts, 19.7 fantasy points. And Tank Dell, welcome back, my friend, 18.7 fantasy points. Who were you most impressed with for the Houston Texans this weekend?
I mean, just seeing Mixon come back and put up numbers again was really positive. So that was awesome. I mean, Dell and Diggs are great. I was not impressed by Schultz. Schultz actually had one of those picks. It bounced off his hands.
Yeah.
And that was in the end zone too. Would have got me some points there, which is upsetting. But yeah, I mean, Stroud just looked efficient. 3 touchdowns. He did have the pick. But Mixon coming back and looking good, and really Pierce coming back and looking good as well. I mean, Cam Akers, I believe, had 2 snaps. So we can be done with the Ogunbowales and Cam Akers as well, because those are the 2 guys. It's Mixon and Pierce, and they both looked healthy. So nice to see that.
Absolutely. The game of the week for the early window, somewhat delivered, I'd say, as the Ravens win over the Commanders 30-23. They also covered in this one as well if you bet the Ravens. Derrick Henry was an absolute monster once again, 24 for 123 and 2. Egg on my face. I didn't think Henry still had this in him. He is an absolute beast out there. Zay Flowers also tore up this Commander secondary. Hopefully you took some alt lines on him. 9 targets, caught all 9 of them for 132 yards. And Mark Andrews, baby, he's back.
He's alive.
3 for 66 and 1. What Ravens impressed you the most here, Boggs?
I mean, really, Derrick Henry, of course, and Zay Flowers had that huge game, as you mentioned. It was nice to see Mark Andrews catch a touchdown and have a couple big gainers here. Still only ran 18 routes. Was behind likely in snaps 46-34. They both ran the same amount of routes, likely ran 18. So I'm not jumping on the bandwagon again quite yet with Mark Andrews, but I did start him in a league because I was, Noah Gray was my backup. It's been tough. I've been considering trading a high pick for George Kittle in that league, and I couldn't do it. And then he scored 2 touchdowns on Thursday. So I was like, oh God, I'm probably going to regret not doing that trade. Mark Andrews got in the end zone. There's a little bit of life, a little bit of pulse there, but let me see it 2 weeks in a row before I go jumping back on the bandwagon here, because the routes are still low, and the game plan for the Ravens every week is still going to be hand the ball to Derrick Henry as many times as he can handle it and keep putting up big chunk yardage. So that should be the plan. That's how they win games. And they won this game doing it. So I think they'll stick to that plan.
Do you think this is more like a changing of the guard, the tight end position for the Ravens? At first, I thought maybe it was because we know Mark Andrews was in that car accident over the summer, so he wasn't maybe at 100%. So I thought maybe that was why he wasn't running as many routes, wasn't taking as many snaps. But maybe likely he's just the younger, more athletic guy, and that's why he's out there more. Is that what you think?
No, I don't. Well, I mean, that could definitely be part of it. But I think this is just Todd Monken's offense versus Greg Roman's offense, right? I think that's what we're seeing here. So just a little bit less usage for him. They talked about wanting to get Lamar more involved, but when you have a guy like Derrick Henry who runs downhill like that, that should be your plan. That's why you go and get him. That's the Harbaugh's way. That's every Harbaugh's way, is run the ball and play good defense, and that's what they're continuing to do.
You could tell the Commanders missed Brian Robinson Jr. in this one. Just 52 rushing yards for Cliff Kingsbury's offense. Pretty uncharacter-like for them. But Terry McLaurin still delivered for fantasy managers. 6 for 53 and 2 on 7 targets. My question, though, about the Commanders is Zach Ertz at the tight end position. Is he maybe worthwhile of a potential waiver wire ad? I don't think you'd have to spend really any fab on him. 4 for 68 in this. He has scored over 7 fantasy points, which doesn't sound like a lot, but still for the tight end position in 4 out of 6 games so far this season. And he is averaging 4.8 targets per game as well. Any interest in the former great for the Philadelphia Eagles?
Absolutely. Yeah. And he was pretty good with the Cardinals as well under Cliff Kingsbury. So this is just him and Jaden Daniels kind of finally putting it together. And I know people are interested in Ben Sinnott. He had 11 snaps in this game and only ran 6 routes. Ertz 47 and 33, and Bates had more routes and snaps than Sinnott. So he's just not ready quite yet. I know people are afraid of him pushing Ertz out eventually. It's not happening, at least in the first half of this season. Maybe way later if Ertz gets hurt,
Right.
maybe Sinnott can step up or something, but it's not happening right now. Also on this squad, we saw Noah Brown come back, and he had 4 catches for 58 yards and also outsnapped Zacchaeus, Diami Brown, Luke McCaffrey, all those guys. So Noah Brown, a guy to maybe look at in a high passing offense as well for a very cheap, pretty deep league ad.
Yeah, I've even seen him on the waiver wires in some dynasty leagues. I had to pick him up in one of my deep ones. I think it was a 14-teamer. I played him this week. So, yeah,
Not bad for a
yeah.
pickup. Yeah. We'll
Yeah.
take it.
I mean, wasn't no Sean Tucker, but he got the job done for sure. And let's go ahead. Let's get to the game that I was deathly afraid of the backdoor cover happening. Chargers 23, Broncos 16. Chargers got out big in this one, but still pretty hum-ho day for their offense overall, aside from J.K. Dobbins. 25 for 96 and 1 for Dobbins, coming back off the Achilles, looking really great this season. That's his 3rd game over 18 fantasy points here. Where do you rank him rest of season? And are you rostering any other Chargers players other than Ladd McConkey right now?
High end RB2 for Dobbins for
Okay.
sure. Not going to do a lot in the passing game, but scoring touchdowns and getting a lot of carries, which is exactly what we want. And he's looked good doing it. So very good running back for Dobbins for sure. Yeah, Ladd McConkey's really the only guy. I mean, I have a soft spot for Josh Palmer. Thought he was going to be better. Had a nice first half, then completely shut out in the second half. So not much there, but McConkey had 8 targets here. So he is their guy, it seems, moving forward. Quentin Johnston banged up, came out, went back in. That guy looks so unbelievably inconsistent. It was all bad last year. This year, at least it's hit or miss. Maybe next year he'll be just good. But I don't know if he's very trustable right now. I'd much rather have Ladd.
Same question for the Broncos. Outside of Cortland Sutton, who caught the touchdown, 15.3 fantasy points for him, and Javonte Williams, who another dud for him, actually 4.6 fantasy points on the day. Are you rostering anyone else in the Broncos? Like we did see Estime, the talented rookie out of Notre Dame, make his debut here, but still didn't get much run either.
Yeah, Javonte has been so tough. I don't want to get rid of him yet. He's still the leading back there.
Yeah, you have to roster a starting running back at this point. You have
right, especially with bye weeks and everything. So, maybe against the Saints, he'll have a better game on Thursday here. This offense, like it takes a half to get going. It seems like every single week, and that is brutal. And it gives us nothing, and it makes them play catch up late in the game. So maybe they should just pass the ball a little bit more early, but whatever they're doing is not working. So yes, Sutton bailed us out with a touchdown. Unbelievable touchdown catch, by the way. Just a great touchdown catch there. And then Vidal, we did skip over a little bit, but Gus Edwards was out. Hopefully we see more Vidal because he made it work with the few touches that he had. He scored that touchdown on the wheel route, looked decent. A guy that made a lot of tacklers miss at Troy. So he's got a lot of wiggle. So he's a deep league guy, watch list guy, however you want to say it, to just at least keep your eye on. He was a big sleeper in early in the offseason, the preseason and everything, and then just hasn't seen the field until this week. So, but he did well with his touches. So another guy to just at least keep in mind.
Yeah, absolutely. And Thursday night football, we have Spencer Rattler versus Bo Nix. Feels like a 2021 college football game or something, Bogman. Holy cow.
Oregon, South Carolina, here we come.
Yes. And before we move on here to the later afternoon games as well, I want to tell you about our Fantasy Pros Discord community. Chat with other fans, get access to exclusive AMAs that wind up on our podcast feed as well. We've got a new schedule for the rest of the season. Joe Welsh and Boggs, yes, this Boggs, they're going to be live on Mondays at 2 Eastern over there on the Discord. The Welsh and Erickson, they're on at Thursdays at 2 Eastern. And then Boggs, you and Fitz back up here on the third Tuesday of each month on the Discord there at 5 Eastern time as well. So come get your questions answered and be on the show at fantasypros.com/chat. Boggs, those shows are always a lot of fun. I edit a lot of them, and just getting the one-on-one action, kind of like really getting the pulse of the fantasy football community is really fun on those.
Yeah, it's fun. We hear a lot of complaints on Monday
Yes.
of the things that have happened. Joe always opens it up for everyone to allow some complaining there for some bad beats and stuff. And Fitz and I, that's this Tuesday at 5. So come and if you got dynasty questions, come and hit us up.
Now's the time to make trades over there too,
That's
man.
right.
If your ship is sinking, get over there with Scott and Pat there in the Discord this week. I want to move to Las Vegas, where our Pittsburgh Steelers put the beat down on the Raiders 32-13. I don't know the last time the Steelers have scored 32 points, but it was fun to see. Justin Fields, 2 rushing touchdowns for him today. Najee Harris got it done on the ground as well. You messaged me right after that long run, like, where's this Najee Harris been?
Where's this guy been? Yeah.
I mean, looked fast. Like I remember watching earlier in the game. I was like, man, Najee looks slow again today. And then boom, a shot out of a cannon. What did you think here overall from the Steelers, my friend?
Yeah, just taking advantage of a tough team right now. The Raiders are bad. You know, they're playing musical chairs at quarterback. Devontae doesn't want to play for them. Jacoby Myers was down here. Offensive line had issues. Defense was getting gassed late in that game as well. So just a tough time for the Raiders, unless you're rostering Brock Bowers, who is doing absolutely outstanding. But I mean, Madison starting at running back here as well. I mean, Madison is okay, but TJ Watt just stripping too many guys of the football this week for them. So tough playing. Good Lord, there's a long touchdown run for Joe Burrow. It's like a 30-yard touchdown run.
Okay.
Sorry.
No,
sorry, I got distracted, but that was crazy. But yeah, for our Steelers, offense looked good. I don't expect it to click like this every single week. But the Raiders look real tough right now. It seems like, we're going through some teams where can you roster this guy? Can you roster that guy? Bowers is it right now.
Madison too.
Madison is scoring touchdowns. You're right.
Yeah. Had another touchdown called back as well.
He did.
So
maybe should have been a touchdown, by the way.
Yeah. He's like a fun one to like get real degenerate and put like maybe like a quarter of a unit on like a double touchdown or something. I don't know. He keeps doing it, man. So
you're right.
We finally saw Dylan Laub this week too. He got in for 1 carry and fumbled the ball, so that was not.
Oh my God, he did that. He might have done that week 1 as well, or maybe it was in the preseason. I can't remember, but yeah, Lobby is having a problem carrying that rock right now. Tough.
Yeah,
didn't see another one after that either. So
are you still rostering Trey Tucker? He got donuted here, but I feel like if we do see a move for Adams, like Tucker kind of is the one explosive player in this pass catching group aside from Brock Bowers and I guess if you want to put Madison in there as well.
Probably not. I mean, Tucker is fine. If he starts getting a ton of targets again, then great. But I just, this offense is rough, man. I really don't want many parts of it. Like when I was talking about Quentin Johnston earlier, I think I'd rather have Quentin Johnston. So,
wow.
It's just not great in Vegas right now.
Are you holding the faith with Jaylen Warren? It hasn't looked good so far this season. 6 for 7 on the ground. Did catch a couple passes here, but just 3 for 11 through the air as well. I saw him hit waiver wires in a couple of my leagues, which a lot of those have Steelers fans, Boggs. So that tells you something.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably where he belongs right now because this is all without Cordell Patterson, right? And we know Arthur Smith loves him. And even at the end of the game, when it's garbage time, they didn't give more carries to Warren. They gave him to Ward. They gave a couple to Champion. Yeah, as well. So just too many mouths to feed, especially when because Patterson was looking good before he got hurt. He was looking better than Najee, if we're being honest. He was looking better than him when he got hurt. So he'll come in and he will get run again because Arthur Smith loves him. And this is why we hate Arthur Smith. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We don't like him because of this stuff that he does with our fantasy teams. But at least, we got the late catch from Pickens was nice. Pat involved as well. So at least we're getting a little bit paid off with some fantasy players here. And Justin Fields continues to be a great pickup in Superflex leagues.
Agreed. Absolutely agreed with you there. Let's go to Carolina here, where Andy Dalton was throwing the pigskin around the yard a little bit to start out this game. 221 yards for him, 2 touchdowns. Good game for Chuba Hubbard on the ground again. Deontay Johnson as well, 6 for 78 and 1. that was good to see. You spotlighted Leggett as well. Jatavion Sanders is the one interesting name here, I think, for the Panthers. If we do see Dalton continue to be under center here, 5 for 49, 7 targets for the talented rookie out of Texas there, the tight end 2 in many people's eyes coming into this process. Do you like Sanders as maybe a sneaky speculative ad, or do you just think it's too early to really put any stock into him?
No, I think he's not a bad ad if you're in like a deep league and it's tight end premium or 2 tight ends or something like that. But Tommy Tremble didn't play here. He typically gets more snaps than Jatavion Sanders for Carolina. So I'm a huge Sanders fan. He's a Texas guy. So he is a great pass catcher. So if he gets this type of run, that'll be great. Maybe I should have picked him for that role, but I think Tremble will come back and,
do you really want to trust the third option? And Thielen might come back too, so then he's maybe even pushed down a little bit more.
And Brooks. So
yeah.
Lots of pieces coming back for Carolina eventually. So nice game here, but let's see him stack before we go ad.
Yeah, they got all your Texas boys over there. I know Andy Dalton, not a Longhorn, but I think he's from Texas. I know
he's from Katy, Texas, which is where I'm from originally.
Okay.
So little small town outside of Houston, much bigger than when I left it when I was 11. But yeah, he went to TCU. He's definitely a local guy for me for sure.
Okay, all right. Maybe you should start pulling for the Panthers. Maybe that can be your second team, Boggs.
I couldn't root for him when he's on the Bengals.
That's true. For the Falcons, meanwhile, Drake London 6 for 74 and 1 touchdown, 10 targets. Great to see Drake London have already 4 touchdowns so far this season. He's tied with some of the best pass catchers in the game, 4 touchdowns right now. And then thank you, Bijan Robinson. I played the double touchdown ticket. It came through for me, 15 for 95 and 2 for Bijan Robinson. I'm seeing some questions in the chat, though, asking like, what's up with this Falcons rushing attack though? We did see Tyler Algier take 18 carries for 105 yards and 1 touchdown as well. Also slightly involved in the passing game, saw a target there as well. So any thoughts on the Falcons, specifically this backfield for those who are wondering about it?
Yeah, I mean, look, we saw a big break last year, and everyone was saying, let's give the ball to Bijan more because Algier was getting the ball and Cordell Patterson was getting the ball. Algier is a good running back, and they're going to, when they feel like they've given the ball to Bijan a little bit too much, they're going to let Tyler Algier take a couple of he's going to take a couple series here, and he had a 20-yard run. He had a touchdown. The guy is a good back. He'd be starting for a lot of teams. You put him in Carolina, he'd be the starting back. There's many spots where he would be a starting running back for that team. So he is going to get run. And I know it annoys people that are rostering Bijan, but it's not like Bijan had a bad game. He had 19 carries and 19 touches and or over 100 combined yards and 2 scores here. That's still a good game for Bijan. So, but Tyler Algier is going to be involved on a week-to-week basis. It's annoying, but it's going to keep happening.
Yeah, it's something we kind of just have to live with. And even next year, I think as long as Algier is there, factor that in. Does he have one more year on his rookie deal? I think maybe Algier, maybe one more.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. Anything else from this game for you from a fantasy football perspective, Bogman?
No, I think we're good on that one. We can go to the next one.
Okay, we'll go ahead and round out the program here in Dallas, where the Detroit Lions absolutely beat down on the Cowboys. Some will say at what cost, with them losing arguably one of their best players overall in Aiden Hutchinson. Deepak talked about that injury earlier on, potentially a tibia fracture there. Jared Goff, 3 touchdowns for him. Dave Montgomery, 2 touchdowns on the ground. Gibbs still kind of did his thing as well, got involved in the receiving game. So not like an explosive game for Gibbs by any means, but still didn't burn you from a fantasy football perspective. I think Jameson Williams, I mean, he was probably one of the highlights, I think, for the Lions. Caught one of those long balls. Amon-Ra got involved. Laporta got involved. It feels like
Gibbs was the only guy that didn't get a touchdown. So
yeah. Like is it wheels up here, you think, just on all Lions skill players?
I mean, how could it not be? They all look so good. I know Laporta had been a little bit frustrating, and only the 1 catch here, but 52 yards and a touchdown. We'll take that.
On the team, yeah.
So yeah, and they just, this was one of those games where you could have seen it going like, oh, it's all David Montgomery and it's nobody else. But they made it work. Jameson caught a touchdown, also had one called back on a pretty bad pass interference from him. But then, Amon-Ra got in late. Laporta on the trick play was nice, and we even got to see Hendon Hooker. I thought he was going to come in earlier, honestly, but yeah, it was a great game for the Lions, and wheels up on all their players for sure.
Should Jared Goff be rostered, do you think? Because he's still out there on a lot of waiver wires right now as well, and plays in a lot of domes this season moving forward as well, which is very beneficial to him, I think.
Yeah, the indoor cat, as Joe likes to call him. So much better in domes. And yeah, I think it wasn't like 15 or 14 of his games are all indoors this year. So yeah, great schedule for him for sure.
Okay. And then for Dallas, man, I mean, it's been a tough season. Let's be honest. Like they're missing a lot of people. They're missing Micah at full health on that defense as well. Dak Prescott, though, just not delivering early in the season here. 17 for 33, 178 yards, 2 interceptions. We actually saw some Cooper rush when this game got out of hand. CeeDee Lamb, 7 for 89, got the 14 targets. But like, if we would redraft today, like, where do you think you put Lamb in your rest of season wide receiver rankings? I know I'd have Jefferson and Chase above him, and Amon-Ra would probably be right there, and Malik Neighbors. So I'd probably have him 4 or 5 among wide receivers. Does that sound right to you?
I mean, that's okay. I would still have him in that group, though. I mean, they're going to have to pass the ball a lot. This defense, specifically the line, with everything banged up. We saw it today. They just could not get stops, right? 47 points they allowed. So the Cowboys, and the run game just isn't working. Like it worked last week against Pittsburgh because they fed Dowdle and they stayed in the game. Obviously, they ended up winning that game at the end. So I don't know why they're so fast to just completely abandon the run. I mean, they got down pretty quick in this game, but played a little bit closer. Take a stage out of Mississippi State's playbook, for God's sake. But, CeeDee Lamb is still, I mean, 14 targets in this game, 7 for 89, still one of the most highly involved wide receivers in the league. So he's still in that top 3 group for me. Do
you like Jalen Tolbert moving forward as well? We have no clear timeline for when Brandon Cooks will be back, and Tolbert still getting targets, 5 targets this week, 4 for 43. So like from a desperation flex, he's not burning you by any means.
Yeah, again, a guy that is going to benefit from what looks like this team is going to have to do moving forward, which is pass the ball a bunch. And it's not even that they have to do it. It's that they abandon the run so fast and just go to passing. So, and that's what happens when you don't have a good running back. So, it's musical chairs between Zeke, and it was more Zeke early in this game. Maybe it was because they're reading about how every team is beat up after playing the Lions this year, which it has been. But I don't really understand what's going on with the Cowboys offense outside of it just being bad. So McCarthy looks like, looks like he might be on thin ice here.
Might be Bill time. Bill Belichick might be getting a call soon, my friend.
Something. Yeah, something. I don't know. It ain't working right now. We know that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Bogman, thanks so much for hanging out with us tonight, recapping us for everything that went down here in week number 6. And that's going to do it for us today on the Fantasy Pros Fantasy Football Podcast. Until next time, like this video if you enjoy it, subscribe to the Fantasy Pros YouTube channel and podcast feed, plus download that My Playbook app. For Scott Bogman, I am Seth Woolcock. Thank you so much for watching. Take care, y'all.